Thanks for tuning in to today's webinar. I'm chatting with Greta Rose Zagarino. Hey, Greta.
Hello, hello.
Greta is one of our fabulous Metorik customers, and we thought it would be cool to record a webinar of us just talking casually and candidly about e-commerce, and maybe also about e-commerce and COVID and how maybe some of her clients have found the past year full of challenges. Yeah.
It's been an exciting year for sure.
Yeah. So Greta, thanks so much. Do you want to tell us a bit about kind of who you are and what Greta Rose Agency does?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so first of all, I absolutely love Metorik. I love it so much. And so it was, I was thrilled for the invitation to talk to you about it and everything else that's going on. So yeah, Greta Rose Agency is a full service digital marketing agency. We're located in Hood River, Oregon, which is just outside of Portland, Oregon in the US. So all the way around the other side of the earth from you.
So what time is it for you now?
It is just about 5 o'clock, happy hour. I should not be drinking water. I should be drinking something else.
It's definitely not happy hour here. So yeah, I'm in Melbourne. So 10:49 a.m. here. So definitely the other side of the world. Yeah.
Top of the morning to you. Yeah, the sun is setting. It's beautiful. This part of the world, the Pacific Northwest, is absolute paradise. And before the pre-conversation, we were talking about, choosing to have a niche agency versus a big fancy agency in New York was certainly a decision. So I work with clients very, very closely. I've got clients around the world, and I leave it very broad. Essentially, we do whatever they need to do to tell their story online. And a lot of that has to do with organizing their entire company from the ground up. So it bleeds into, if it's e-commerce, of course, if they've got a product, if it's a service, if it's just, a fun project where we are building a tool like a new website, of course, SEO and social media and all that stuff. Essentially, we're just helping them tell their story and articulate it to the right people.
Amazing. I mean, that sounds awesome. So it looks like you're kind of, you could pick up like a customer at any point. Like, I mean, they could be like starting some sort of like brand new like business or venture, or it might be, I mean, I had a look on your website and there's definitely some well-known brands there, like JP Morgan Chase, like for example, Lionsgate as well. So picking up as well these bigger companies and kind of probably helping them on a certain project as well.
I think my favorite is when a company is just ready to catapult to the next level. So they understand the importance of marketing. They understand that they really need to pay attention to how they tell their story, how they articulate the promotion of their product or service, and they are ready to invest in that, whether it's not necessarily just money, but like time, attention. They're ready to be accountable for that. And frankly, like I'll wait until I'm involved with the client, but really what we're doing is helping them organize their shit.
I mean, that's quite like a frank way to put it, but yeah, that's great. I mean, so
yeah,
do you find that you're like kind of making a plan for them about like, this is the strategy that I see for you guys, and then someone from inside the company is like actually in charge of like, putting that into action? Or are you sometimes also quite hands-on with that strategy being implemented?
It's actually whatever is appropriate. It's so curated case by case. So if a company, if they have the intention of being really in-house and having their team completely 100% responsible, what I will do is step in and just be that, be the training wheels, help them hire, bring the right people on board. I really love working with entire companies. I love revamping their entire company culture. I love helping every single person involved understand the context of why marketing has value. So even in the shipping department with fulfillment, understanding that how you package that, when a person actually opens a product and opens the box, that's their first impression and how excited they could be. And that's an opportunity to tell a story and get them excited about sharing with another person. So it's like looking for each little droplet. So to answer your question, it's really case by case. Yes, the alternative of if they're not wanting to build a company and have it in-house, then of course it's all hands-on. And then I'm just like, let me just do it. Like, get out of my way, let me just do it.
I mean, there's a time, sometimes that's what's necessary if you want to get the result, right?
Usually it's a little bit of both. They'll hire me, I'll help them figure out what their objectives are. We'll do some really fun like organizing. And then we figure out there are 3 phases. There's the planning phase, building phase, execution phase. And so we do the planning. And then a lot of times the building, I'm like, let me just build it. Let me just build it. We'll do, and of course it's a creative opportunity. I love design. I love development. I love that left, right brain. And then it's the execution, and that's building the systems. Enter in Metorik.
I mean, we can or cannot talk about that later. I mean, that's we'll see where the conversation goes.
It's a big part of like organizing systems and helping them streamline and like trim the fat, become efficient so that they actually can focus on their objectives, so it's like this full circle thing. And so that's maybe it's, I slowly extricate. What's the word I'm looking for?
Extricate.
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 It suddenly seems like a very strange word to me.
Extrude.
Exit.
And you went for it. You went for
it.
Yeah, you went for it. That's fine.
I'm going to slowly back away from the company and let them like manage it themselves.
Yeah.
And then I have a cool, service. I always kind of try and keep my hand on their shoulder, and like, it's called GPS. And, that's where Metorik actually comes in. Cause it's like, I like to help them really stay accountable by looking at the numbers, and the analysis is how you actually know what you're doing.
And I think that the acronym GPS, I mean, that's not by chance that you're going to try and lead them to the right direction.
Isn't it cute?
It's
a
cute.
Great name, isn't it?
What does it stand? What does it stand for?
Greta Personal Support.
And you lead them in the right direction. Genius.
But GPS, and I'm really like, it's so specific because a lot of times they want me to just do it for them, and I'm like,
yeah,
no, you don't.
I'm your GPS. I'm not your driver. If I wanted to,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, nice. I'm not your Uber. I'm not your taxi.
Yeah.
I'm your GPS.
Yeah.
And if you get lost, we'll reroute.
Well, yeah, love that. Yeah. I guess maybe also I was interested to know kind of just the brief journey of how you got to running this agency. Like, what's your background in your craft?
Yeah, so way back in the day, I actually, my background was in theater. I studied theater and acting, and I studied in London, and I was like, my big claim to fame, I can't believe I'm actually telling you this right now, was that I was the face of Casper, the friendly ghost, in the movie Casper, starring Christina Ricci in 1992.
You were the you were the face?
Yes.
I mean, what
was I worked at Industrial Light and Magic, and it was they were doing motion capture. And so I had, for 2 years, I had to put little metal dots all over my face, and I did all of the facial expressions in the lip sync.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's an experience.
Pretty exciting. So my background is actually, the reason why I say that is I used to be kind of embarrassed about that background. Like, oh, what does that have to do with like my agency? But it was how to tell a story, how to be
Mm.
emotional,
Mm-hmm.
and to evoke a very clear, to connect with an audience, to communicate. It's so, so helpful now. So then I retired at age 30 because I didn't win an Academy Award. And I got into nonprofit.
Yeah.
And in nonprofit, of course, we have no money. And so we were trying to save money. Around the year 2000, suddenly these new tools came into place: WordPress, Facebook, Google, like changed the world. And as a nonprofit, we were suddenly able to communicate and control our content and share it. It was like mind blowing. And
Mm.
so the light went on for me, and it was all on the job training. I just was figuring out how to write code, and I really had a thirst for it. I wanted to know everything about it.
Yeah.
Uh, so long story short, I found myself uh, thinking that I could help other people, and that was back in, oh, I don't know, 2008-ish. And I just was like, can I build your website for you? That's how I started.
I mean, that's
Will
how
you
it's
pay
that's
me?
how it always starts. Yeah. I'll do it for free. Like I need
I
something on my
totally did it for
website.
free.
Yeah, yeah,
I did it for free. And then I was like, the first person who paid me $500 to do their website, I was like, oh, no
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
that's an epic
so,
story. And that's just something in of itself about like your whatever you study or whatever your career is, like it where you can end up is just,
yes.
there's no necessary correlation. Although sometimes, I
No.
mean, there is a correlation, but it's like, it's the skills, I guess, that you learn on the job that you're in that can be applied to, like from theater
Yeah.
to like e-commerce is like quite a big jump. But probably when you think about and boil down the skills of like storytelling and sending a message, e-commerce is about that for your customers as well.
Yeah. It really, it's totally random, but kind of perfect. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. That's a very great introduction. Like and we were actually already. I mean, we did compile some questions before. Nothing of this except for kind of like tell us a bit about yourself
I
was
know.
on the list. But I mean, it's been pretty good so far.
We've only got 49 questions left.
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, we're only still the top of the page. Amazing. All right, well let's maybe jump into. I mean, one of the So I do want to talk about COVID
Yeah.
and kind of how you've coached your clients through it and things that they've learned and things that you've learned, because I think that's applicable to everyone in business.
Yeah.
Whether you're online or offline, but also to e-commerce. And also because, I mean, we're dealing with COVID now, but I mean, we're definitely not immune to other external pressures and shocks, whether it's hopefully not another pandemic, but it could be, the market crashing or whatever happening. So I think there's a lot of lessons we could maybe implement to our businesses today to hopefully make us more adaptable in the future.
Yep.
But before we jump into that, I guess in a general sense, what are you seeing across stores in common that are stores who are like successful and profitable?
Oh, yeah. It was such an interesting question, because I actually, looking at what makes them successful, I wanted to whittle it down to something that could be very, very specific, but also universal. So I actually think that the number one successful trait is accountability and willingness to learn. I think that, so I know you're going to ask me sort of the next question is like, well, what are things that you've seen that have not been successful? And I think that it's the same question, sort of what works and what doesn't work. So there's a business that is willing to ride the wave of change and is willing to adapt and be patient and uh, just have a willingness to learn, if that makes sense. I really believe that companies, so I've got some really specific examples of where we headed into COVID and it was really needing to do a complete 180. And so in those examples, so I've got I actually have 3 for you that are fun. I was working on, so Lionsgate was putting out the films, the feature film, The Secret, Dare to Dream, based on the book, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, who's there. She's an Aussie. And so we were getting ready to do a big red carpet event on April 17th with Katie Holmes. And it was just like, you can imagine the amount of money and investment that was leading up to this big gala event and launching it out to the world in theaters. So obviously complete halt, complete devastation, complete like, okay, what are we going to do? And what they decided to do was to make it this really wonderful home event. The feeling of the film is, it's obviously, if you know anything about the book, it's about manifesting your dreams and being able to really have positive thought. Well, obviously, how applicable is that to what's going on in our world right now? And so to be able to bring positivity into your home and to make it a family event and to have love and comfort and joy and like manifesting togetherness, it was actually just changing the story. So the companies that have been willing to listen to the needs of their customers and to really adapt and be able to give them what they need at any given time, that has been the most successful. I hope that that's not too broad of an answer, because
no, I mean, that's great. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that stands out to me is like, you would think that like, what's like, if someone was to ask like, what's the one thing that determines whether a company is successful, you would think it's like the product. It's like, that's what you think. It's like, if you sell like a good product that people want to buy, that's going to be the determining factor. But I mean, that's clearly not the case, because you see some amazing products, whether like that's at like the conceptual phase or whether after production, and they just completely bomb, even though it was an amazing product or an amazing service. So I mean, that's super interesting. Yeah.
And the rigidity, like if they're going to stand by that product, even though it's amazing, and not listen to, it sort of comes back to that little like background of communication and actually, I think that's what marketing is like fully, this is not a one-way street. I have to actually be in relationship with you, my customer, and I have to understand what your needs are. So I've got two other great examples of companies that did quite well in the shift. One of them is Coconut Bliss Ice Cream. Do you know about them? Coconut Bliss, they're a coconut-based ice cream company.
Okay. Have they made it down to Australia? Do they maybe
I
online?
would think so. They're adored here.
Don't tell me it's an Australian company and they're like stuck in like, all Australia. Maybe they are.
Right in your backyard. No. They're based here in Oregon, but they are, I know they're national. I don't know if they're international. They should be. I think they are. Anyway, they're a beautiful, organic, really high quality, coconut-based, dairy-free ice cream. Is so good. So good. And so if you're not into like dairy ice cream, it's a great alternative. Anyway, so they decided to come up with a whole new product, which is a home ice cream maker. And so you could like make your own and put in your own things. And then they had like recipes and they had things to engage with their, like, what a great thing to do with the evening, and here are some movies that we recommend and here's some activities. And so it was all about saying, okay, you're homebound, we're going to fill that gap. And frankly, the product itself is a much higher end product because you're buying the machine and then you're buying the like 2 big cartons and like the container and the tools. So they were very profitable by shifting their story.
So were they able to tool up and produce this thing and sell it like in that changeover into COVID?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
I mean, and that they're an ice cream company. Like they're not like a company that produces machines or anything. Like, so that, I
Not
mean,
at
that's
all.
true.
Not at all.
Very cool.
And I will say that, you know, my door started being knocked on more than ever because people wanted to communicate what they were doing differently on their website. So a lot of people did change what their website looked like. It was a good time. So the third story I'll tell you is a cake company.
Mhm.
They're a very high-end bakery, and their business went completely. They are located in Los Angeles, and they just do this like event cakes. So they do these huge wedding cakes, and obviously no one could get married, and big events weren't happening, and so lost almost to the brink of bankruptcy. And they shifted to being able to do online small cakes. So we were able to create a Shopify store very quickly and just do small cakes and pick up a delivery. And they also did extremely well. So it's just that willingness to be accountable, be very willing to adapt, being willing to learn a new thing.
I guess this leads into the question about, do you think that like the structure of a business like determines whether they're able to be like pandemic resistant or like resistant to external pressures? Like, is there a type of business which is just like doomed from the beginning, like based like in the fact that that's who they are and they're just done? By the way, we've moved into, I think we've just slid right into the COVID part of the chat. So yeah.
I know, I'm sorry. I was
No,
so
we're
excited
good.
to talk about
No,
COVID.
yeah.
It's just so relevant. I think that's
Yeah,
what
for sure.
probably people
Interested
will
about.
want to
Yeah.
hear about.
Yeah.
And it's all this, it's kind of one and the same, frankly. I mean, we are
100%. I think
talking
like this
about
is the
like,
world.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think the companies that, so it's again, that rigidity, like if you are just going to insist on, this is what I do, then frankly, you know, you will either sink or swim, and maybe it'll survive and maybe it won't. But I do think we need to diversify more than ever before. We need to be able to provide just more than one service. I think that's the number one thing that I take from this question is, you know, what would be the most helpful? If you just do one thing, if you only have one egg in your basket and that's what you sell and that's what you do, then I would imagine that there would be roller coasters, sometimes highs and lows, and good luck to you.
Mm. I mean, so is that something that like, say someone is going to like, you're talking to one of your existing clients or you're chatting to someone new, are you like looking at kind of like what they do and kind of chatting with them to see like, how do we maybe look and expand into other markets, or like, you know, create like some sort of like similar product that, you know, can maybe support or be another
Yes.
option?
I am always, I always advise against having, I can't even imagine a single service or even if you, here's a way to shift it in a way that works for people. So if you do have a single service or a single product, at least diversify how you communicate so that you are able to provide that single service or product to more than one type of person. That would be a good successful way of enduring, like if there is another financial crisis, or you have to change the price point, or you have to change the delivery method, or if you have to shut down for a period of time, you know. So I've got a client who is a lawyer, and she has a very clear set of clients that she serves, but she realized that she could communicate that very differently depending on, and so she uses her blog to be able to, her online journal, to be able to very clearly communicate, and that will resonate with different types of people. Yeah, I think that it's diversify.
Yeah,
Even
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm like looking at the question here. I wrote as a note, let's talk about being able to pivot and adapt, because unless you're selling face masks, you would have to have made some sort of change in COVID. But even now that I'm thinking about it, even face mask people selling face masks would have had to as well, because I mean, they're selling probably like X amount of face masks a day pre-COVID.
yeah.
But like the second the pandemic hit, like every single store, every pharmacy was out of face masks anyway. So I mean, even they're not immune from that. But I guess the main thing that I'm taking away is just like to not be rigid, and I guess to be thinking like creatively about how you either can create new products or maybe speak to new markets, but and new customers. But I guess ultimately, like that, you know, the business being successful is determined by, you know, the person who's in charge, or the leadership of the business, or the management. So I mean, what can they do as people? Because we're talking about businesses as if it's like some non-tangible like you know, entity,
Right.
but these are run by people. So what can the people who are running these businesses, whether it's one person or a bigger company with hundreds of people, what can they do themselves to like upskill and make themselves, I guess, more adaptable, to make sure the businesses are more adaptable as well?
Yeah. I'm so if I were to step into a company right away who was in a crisis situation, the very first thing is obviously determining like if there is any place that we can cut, I want to say like cut the fat, but basically like trim down and become more efficient in all of our systems. Now, I have a great example of another client who their entire business was doing all of the stage curtains for all of the rock bands, like all the big concerts around the world. So every large event that you've seen with like the big onstage thing. So obviously concerts went completely kaput in COVID. And so they went to just building masks. They shifted immediately and they were able to at least hobble along. They did have to trim down their team. That's the hardest part. I don't have a good answer for when there's a financial crisis and money runs out. Companies, you know, we've got these like payroll protection programs. There's a little bit of assistance offered, but when it comes to actually planning, it's like, okay, what do we absolutely need to achieve here? And that's comes back down to, is there a certain, we're going to get a little nitty gritty here, but like, is there a certain dollar amount that you need to raise by the end of the year to survive? That's a real simple objective, because then if we have a sale quota that you're actually aiming for, then we're able to say like, okay, so who cares how we get there? If this is what you actually have to achieve, can we be a little bit original with how we actually get to that sales goal? So now let's think outside of the box. You have a service, you have a product. Is that relevant now? Is there a way to shift the story that actually is relevant? Like the coconut bliss, people aren't really wanting to go out of their home. Can we bring that into their home? Or the film, can we bring it into your home? Where are your customers? Are they, there's a fun story we used to talk about with the buffalo and the lion. And so the buffalo are roaming and the lion is hungry and he chases and chases, but they're all actually really fast. And so he runs and he never catches one. So he figured out that if he just sits by the well long enough that the buffalo will come. So you want to go to like, where's the well? Where are your customers? So getting, again, I hope this isn't like too nitty gritty down a rabbit hole, but if you know what you absolutely must achieve to survive, and then you're willing to think outside the box, and you're willing to take your skill set, your products, your services, and adjust them, and you know, where are my customers, then it's a matter of engaging with those customers and letting them know that you have that. And how are we going to do that? How are we going to tell your story? Do we need to change your website? Do we need to start new communication tools? Do we need to, is it, email? Is it sending them a little package with a sample? Is it um, calling them on the phone or showing it up at their door? It really is a matter of like, how can we get to your customers in a new, fun way? And then it's making sure that they feel really, really happy and satisfied so that they tell your story. I'm always about like the joy. How can we make them feel joyful about what you're doing?
Nice. Nice answer. That's very epic.
It's a not an easy answer though. It's not like, okay, so if we get another pandemic, how do we survive?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's no, if there was an answer, I mean, then the webinar would be like, okay, Greta, so how do, your clients get through a pandemic? And that's the answer. And then that's the end of the webinar. And then everyone goes home. And we're all rich and we got no problems. But
sell that. I would sell that little package, like the COVID package by Greta Rose.
Yeah. No, it's not that simple. I mean, yeah, some thoughts. I mean, one thing that comes to mind just about the sales part, and this is something I've thought about, is like, I feel like often, and this is coming from more of like a financial perspective and your sales, is like, I feel like businesses, maybe sometimes when they're spending money, let's talk about we're pre-COVID, they're spending money and they're hiring, often they may be thinking about like, this is what it's always going to be like this is what business is going to be like. I'm going to have like, I can sell wherever I want. I've got money coming in, people are coming into my stores, and like they're buying things online. And then not maybe like planning for, well, what happens if shit hits the fan? And I feel like as humans and like individuals, like often we'll be like, okay, how am I going to meet my rent this month? Am I going to meet my mortgage this month? How much do I have in the bank that if, I lose my job personally, how long can I stay afloat for before, I need to like maybe talk to the government about getting, some assistance or whatever. And I feel like often businesses don't have that same approach to what we do as individuals. They'll just like be like, well, like things are good. I'm just going to like spend. I'm going to like I'm going to hire 100 new people like this year. But they're not thinking about what happens if shit hits the fan. So I think that's maybe something that businesses can maybe think like, well, when I make a plan going forward now, how am I going to fare if I only have 25% of my sales or 10% of my sales? Because that's very much a reality now that I think maybe people hadn't thought about.
I know the fragility of even large companies, I think, is shocking to experience that. So Lionsgate is a huge company. And I remember, a good friend of mine is a very successful film producer. And he just, frankly, he was a little arrogant, he just thought that he was pretty much the shit and was gonna, always be the shit. And so suddenly for his entire industry to almost collapse, wondering if there would ever be a movie in another theater ever again, our movie's going to be made. It was so humbling. And I actually think that was a good thing. It was really kind of refreshing to see him a little humble. And you're like, I think it's such a mistake for large companies. I just watched the last Blockbuster documentary. Did you see that?
Haven't seen that.
It's on, I think it's on Netflix
Okay.
or one of the streaming companies, but it's, Blockbuster. It's very sweet. There's like one block. Do you know Blockbuster, or is that an
We had
American thing?
No, it's a good clarification. I do know Blockbuster. I don't know if it was the same company. Like our one was like, it was like blue and yellow branding.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Same Blockbuster. Yeah. They there was, when I was a kid, one day there was Blockbuster, and then like the next day there was no Blockbuster. It's kind of how it felt to me.
Yeah. And so this film was very endearing. It was really sweet to remember because, I grew up like that's what you did on a Sunday with your family. You got in the car and you all went to Blockbuster and you all got to pick out your film. And there was a popcorn machine and staff picks, and it was very family based. And then you had to go home and watch the film in your VCR or your DVD player, and then you would take it back and get late fees and
Oh, the late fees. Yeah,
the late fees.
They sucked.
But to the point is that, that was a large behemoth, and in the documentary, they really they made some critical errors because they just never thought that anyone would ever not want a Blockbuster again. They couldn't imagine. And so they had an opportunity to join and align with Netflix. And they said, oh, no, you guys, you're stupid. We'll never need you. And of course, Netflix took over the world.
It's very, and I'm pretty sure Netflix at some point were also doing like and they still might have a small like DVD like component of their business, right?
Well, they started out that way.
Yeah,
they started out that way.
So they started out that way, but they were kind of able to like see that, well, I mean, the way the world is trending isn't going to be in this, and unless we kind of pivot. It's interesting.
So, just keeping it on topic, it's that no matter the size of your business, large or small, being able to, again, I really feel like everyone always has to dedicate some time of their week to learning, just keeping on track with new platforms and Google Trends, and like educating themselves. Like, how are people talking today? What are they wanting today? What are they needing? What are our customers needing? Are we serving them the best possible way that we could serve them? What could we do that would make them even happier? You guys, I really think this is why I wrote my little love note to you guys. I've watched.
Definitely, like when we read that, like, Greta wrote us like a lovely testimonial. And I mean, between there's three of us in the company, me, Bryce, and Sven, we all read it. We're like, wow. I mean, it was really something.
Oh, well, it was so heartfelt because there are very few companies that I feel really have that standard of always pushing yourselves to be the best. There are a lot of companies out there that do reporting and do analytics, but you guys just take it one step above, and you're always improving. You always have something new. You don't have to. You could probably stop inventing new things, but you're always like, you know what? We could do this and we could do that. And here's another thing. And so I just really appreciate that. And I think that is a great example of ensuring longevity and success.
True. Yeah. At least for us, like, I mean, like, it's funny because like we don't actually even use Metorik ourselves, funnily enough, because like our customer base, like it can't, we need to actually look at importing it so that we can use Metorik ourselves. So we're really building it for, the Shopify, our Shopify and WooCommerce customers. It's not for us, it's for you guys. So, I mean, for us, that kind of manifests in like, we are all doing, for example, like support tickets. And so we're all like hearing from our customers, like what issues kind of they're having. And then that informs either what products are developed, or like what features are developed, or like what content's being put out, or like, this webinar, like, by us chatting, I think it might have come out from either a support ticket from you or just me reaching out for something, maybe for a quote for one of our agencies page. But that kind of manifests into this webinar. and yeah, that kind of how it happens. Yeah.
But that's right there. I mean, you guys all have your hand on the pulse of
Yeah.
your customers. You all are aware
Yeah.
of the noise, the chatter, what people are saying. And I think a lot of times companies, here's another thing I think they just, that is not helpful. When a company delegates marketing or communications or support down to the lowest peg of their company, where they basically like say, oh, the front person at the desk is going to be the one who answers the
And
phone.
answering yeah.
What are they thinking? Like, that is
It
their
doesn't. Yeah.
gold. That is how their customers feel about them. And then they wonder why, they're not getting loved and adored by their customers and fans.
Super
If you
interesting.
actually rise that up into the company and have someone really, really high powered, high level, able to act and like answer at you can tell when you get a response from someone who actually cares that you wrote that email. Or you can get the little automated like, oh, sorry you feel that way, have a nice day, bye.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah, I feel like
yeah.
often most of the times you speak to someone who's higher up in a company through like their support channels is when you have an issue and the person needs to escalate it. And then like, all right, now someone like is getting involved. But I mean, like, yeah, I feel like, yeah, a big way to kind of hear what your customers want is for the bigger players in the company to maybe spend a bit more time chatting to all the customers.
Initially, I mean, you imagine that like most, even the larger companies started smaller once upon a time. And so Netflix started by a guy who actually saw a problem at Blockbuster and wanted to fix it. He hated the late fees. And so he wanted to create a system with DVDs that you could just mail in and you did a monthly subscription. You didn't have to think about, you just paid it. And if you kept a film longer, who cares? So, having like that initial, no one, that's back to like way back in the beginning. The reason why I still run this agency the way that I do is because I'm not going to let go of that type of attention to my clients. I'm not going to give that to somebody else who I don't trust to actually do as good a job as I will do for them. And so through COVID or through any type of difficulty, I mean, let's face it, before COVID, we all have been growing our businesses. We've all gone ups and downs over the years. It's always been coming back to picking up the phone and talking to people, or like having that one-on-one connection, and then finding out like, what do you need? I could do that. I can help you with that. We'll figure this out. And then taking it from there.
Super
You
interesting.
gotta hustle.
Definitely got to hustle and listen to your customers. Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing that was interesting to me, like from what you saw with your customers and maybe some other companies, do you think for a lot of people it was during this pandemic, and it's obviously still going on, do you think it was about going into like a hibernation mode and kind of just like staying afloat? Maybe like laying off some employees, sadly, but like keeping the actual business afloat and then just biding your time until things reopen and they can go back to that, original plan of sales plan or whatever? Or for most people, was it about like actively like changing and pivoting, entering new markets, and actually maybe even becoming more profitable or staying at that same level?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, there are some companies, like I live in a small town, and some of our local restaurants, they found that their takeout business was just something that skyrocketed. The local sushi restaurant here, they make really good sushi, and I don't even know if they will ever open again, just because they just realized that the business model was so much more profitable and easier, and they don't have to deal with people in their restaurant anymore.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's all, so again, it's kind of the same thing, but like problem solving, looking at if there's something that is, like the ice cream maker. I think that that's probably going to be a open up a whole new line of products they hadn't even contemplated until they had to. And if they're open to that and they're excited about it, then I think that could be extremely profitable. I think that there are some companies, so I had another venue and their entire business, I felt, it like broke my heart.
Yeah.
They put everything they had, all their savings into getting this place up and running just before COVID hit.
Terrible.
And so it was beautiful and like gorgeous, and it's just sitting there, but it happened to be on an island.
Okay.
And so they were able to say, aha, if you are COVID free and you are looking for a place to safely get to and be on an island away from the whole world, we can help you. And so it was a little bit of hobbling along, but they were thinking out of the box. I don't know what else we could do. It's like, what you got? What can we do?
Venues is a very tricky one. I mean, like if your business like relies on people being there, I mean, it's not like even like a restaurant where you can't take the service of the venue really and put it anywhere else and make that remote. So I mean, at least they're an island. I mean, for like one thing, obviously bars and like clubs, for example, like in Melbourne where I live, I mean, that was doing some like takeaway kind of stuff, like setting up outside when they could. But I think for a lot of bar clubs, it was like doing live streams. And I guess there was a huge like I saw a huge like explosion of like DJ live streams, something I'm into a bit. And I don't know if there's necessarily a lot of money in there, but at least they could keep their audience engaged. We were lucky, like we had our government was pumping in money into businesses to keep them afloat. And so I think whilst a lot of places did close down, like, a lot of the venues were able to stay open. And now that we're lucky that where I live in Melbourne is relatively open now, and clubs are back on. But it was cool to still see like this nightclub that I really like, or this bar is like doing a live stream, and it's still nice to feel connected to these places. So that's, I guess, it's a half staying afloat, half pivoting. Maybe they were able, I'm not sure if they're able to monetize those live streams or whatever, but, even still,
I would think that
important. Yeah.
I would think that so that's where a local community is going to want to support. So if they did monetize it, I would think that would be a way that the local community could happily pay and understand why it was being monetized, just to keep them afloat. And of course, we're so as beautiful as this place is where I live, it is a small town. It is very much a bubble, and it is isolating, and I haven't been able to see my family and all this stuff. And so I think that again, this is listening to the pulse of your particular audience, or maybe broadening your audience, saying like, okay, people are really desperate for connection. How can we think outside of the box to create connection? I think it's so lovely how, a lot of hospitals have that 7 a.m. Everyone gathers and claps outside, or in my developer, my WordPress developer he lives in Italy, and he, outside of his window, all of his neighbors like open up their window and like hit pans at a certain time. And it's like, just to feel like small connected ways. Yeah. Just to sort of be like, I'm alive.
I mean, that's like an interesting point about like fostering like a community as part of your business as well. I mean, making whether it's like connecting your customers or making, like you see like some companies or some websites like having like a Slack channel where like people can like all join. And I think that, if you can really make them feel like invested in not just the product, but like the people and if there is a community around that, I mean, when maybe like, something like external happens and, at least you've got people who want to see you succeed. So they might, go that extra mile to help, or,
I
Yeah.
do wish that I had stock in Zoom.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
who knew that Zoom was going to be the way that people actually connected? Like
Yeah.
everyone. Oh my gosh. So right before the pandemic, I was working with another film project that was going to be, they were doing an event on March 26th, and it was going to be in 500 theaters around the world. And
Hmm.
so it was going like, again, epic outdoor community
Yeah.
event, lots of people, and they were going to host an event at UCLA in Los Angeles with all of these like really amazing people, and they were going to do a Q&A, and all of that had to change. This was, I think, about 2 weeks before the event, we started
Hmm.
realizing this wasn't going
Hmm.
to happen. No
Yeah.
one's going to get on a plane. We had all had our arrangements. And so Zoom saved us. And so we had online Q&As, and we managed to get everyone access to be able to
Mm,
stream
mm,
the
mm, mm.
movie. So everyone around the world, we actually had a much bigger turnout. Everyone was able to watch the movie and then come online to this Zoom chat and talk with people, and know the people more than just the ones who could come to UCLA. Now we could have experts from around the world. So we had an incredible panel of people. And so, yeah, Zoom.
I mean, it is fascinating because imagine like this had happened, let's say 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, when
Oh,
like
yes.
this tech, so I mean, it is kind of lucky that like in one sense that this has happened in a time when it's not like we had to establish all these technologies. It's like, well, all like Zoom and Google Meets and there's some other ones also
Yeah.
popping up as this is happening, but we had the infrastructure ready to go. So whilst businesses had to pivot and like maybe move remote and like, change the way that they kind of operate on a day-to-day basis, the tools are there. Imagine like what would have
Yeah.
happened if this happened like when Skype was just a thing and it was like, pretty, or even pre-Skype, and there was nothing available. Like what would have happened then? I mean, it would have just been,
Yeah.
and that's a very likely possibility. Like it is just like luck that this pandemic happened now, but it could have very easily have happened in 2000, for example, and then
I
it would
know.
have been a big problem because we wouldn't have had these tools to at least facilitate the pivots that we're talking about. That would have been a whole nother conversation about. I'm glad we don't have to have that one about in 2000 if a
I think
pandemic happened to this.
I think that we would have figured it out. I think we are actually, as human beings, I think that we tend to adapt, and
That's true.
we would have figured it out. It just would have been in very small local bubbles around the
That's true.
world.
That's true.
And we still had landline phones. We would have
That
called.
is true. That's true.
We would have done conference calls.
Yeah, conference calling in. It just wouldn't have had like the screen sharing and the big
No.
events with like, people being able to tune in all around the world and things like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. We would have made it work to some degree.
Yeah.
I think this has been amazing. I think maybe let's just wrap up with maybe some like just a few key things you think that like businesses should be doing now to kind of
Yes.
make themselves more adaptable
Yes.
to the future. I mean, so we were talking about, I mean, like taking the time as like a business owner to, learn and maybe not just be driven on sales, but to be like, all right, how can I maybe look at some other avenues? And I think people are doing that.
Yeah.
Obviously, like there's a strategic team that is looking at other opportunities always in
Yeah.
some businesses. But yeah, what are some other things you think that businesses can be doing now?
I've got just 3 small, very, very doable tips.
Amazing.
One is to make sure. You would be amazed at how many owners of companies do not know how to look at their tools. So they don't know how to log into their website, and they don't
Okay.
know how to use any of the resources that they're paying for, such as Metorik. So I often have to start there, where I say, if something happens, especially, I mean, we're talking about like the security of your business, it's take at least 1 hour a week. and I'm saying every single person, the largest company to the small sole proprietor, and at least spend at least 1 hour a week looking at your tools. Log into the back end of your website, look at everything, make sure that it's correct, make sure that it's proper, make sure that it's updated, look at all of your resources. And that means analytics. That's your for e-commerce, look at Metorik. It's like a crystal ball telling you exactly what is happening. It's telling you what products are working, what your consumers are loving. It's comparative. I mean, you're able to actually see the trends. It is so well organized. I don't understand the resistance to actually looking at it, but I
I
feel
think
as though it's exceptionally important.
Yeah, I think people, like, when it comes to numbers, if you're not like, if you don't enjoy maybe like digging into the data, it can be overwhelming to like come to a page where it's like, there's all these figures and so I can understand, but I mean, business owners, you know, should strive to be able to understand their data and feel comfortable with that.
I mean, that's
that
exactly
kind of
like GPS got started because very successful business owners were embarrassed to ask very simple questions. So a business owner is like exceptionally good at what they do. They have their business, they've got their skills, they've got their products, but they don't know how to log into their website, and they don't know how to look at analytics. They don't know what SEO is. They don't want to go near social media. They are happy to have other people do that. And I'm totally fine with having other people do it. Once you are empowered enough to understand what you are telling them to do for you. So I think that taking at least 1 hour to learn it is, first of all, a lot of people, once they actually see it and understand it, like they're so obsessed and excited about it. Like then they're like, oh my gosh, this is so helpful.
Yeah.
I don't have to guess. I don't have to wonder, which products are doing the best right now. I can actually see it.
Yeah.
You know, and so the getting over that, like putting your head in the sand and just pretending that analytics aren't there, is not going to help you or serve you. So number one, like 1 hour a week
on your tools.
Number two, on your tools. Like take a second, and if you don't know how to do it, there are plenty of ways. Asking either of us to help them, we could do that. Number two,
let me jump in quickly. I mean, it is such a good point, because it's like, imagine if in 5 years, like shit hits the fan again. I know I keep using that phrase, but it seems very apt. And imagine once a week for an hour, like for 5 years, you've been actually like, you know, the first time it might be really like overwhelming, but within 5 years of looking at your data, you'll feel so confident and comfortable with what's going on. So that when that shock does happen, it's not like, oh my God, what's going on? It's like, okay, this is what's doing well. This is what's doing bad. This is costing us this amount of money. This was like maybe a product or a service that we were experimenting with. It's not working. Cut this, put my money into that. I mean, and it can just be almost like, all right, let's jump into like, you know, emergency, you know, COVID mode again. And it's not like you're at that point, like scrambling, like what is actually going on. So I think that's an amazing point.
And so, you know, on one hand, it's analytics, it's numbers, it's like, you know, you gotta like think of, people get intimidated by it. They think of it as math, but I actually look at it very creatively. It helps you think about really interesting questions. So you're able to interpret the data. And so, for example, a company that I'm working with now, we noticed that one of their high traffic pages was their company page, their about page. And if you clicked on it, it had just a little block of text, nothing. It was just like very, and we were like, wow, it's getting so many people coming to look at this page. This is a great opportunity for us to make this page really exciting. Let's like, let's put on some videos here and let's invite them to other things that you're
Or
doing
like
and
a
let's make
call
sure
to
that they
action.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were able to optimize the page and make it very exciting and successful and be a door into the rest of their site instead of just like a one-stop shop.
Awesome.
We only knew that by looking at the analytics and saying, huh, a lot of people are going to their company page. That's weird.
Okay, so that's number one, and I rudely cut you off.
Yes. Number two is I love looking at Google Trends. I do like going to, and you can look at what I mean by Google Trends. It's a little bit broad. I actually do like going to, if you Google Trends, that tool is really fun. And so the way I use it is that I ask my client, if you were to go to Google right now and search for yourself, what would you type in? And they start typing in some things. And then they're sort of shocked and dismayed when they don't show up on the page.
Yeah.
Like, and they're not there. And they're like, dang it, I should be right there. I mean, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And so we start the conversation of saying, okay, if let's really think about where is the space that you want to be in the Google world, in the world of search engines. Like, where do you want to be? And so, for example, I work with a beautiful organic hair care company, and they wanted to be in the clean beauty space. Well, clean beauty applies to hair care and skincare and, you know, household products. It's too broad. So we said, let's really aim on the clean beauty hair care space. And just starting that conversation, we could go over to Google Trends and we could start. So Google Trends lets you actually look at real live data from the past 12 months, and you can tweak the settings, the filter, and you're able to do side-by-side comparisons of actual search words and phrases and see. So we were able to see that clean beauty hair care, this is a little thing, but hair care as 2 words versus hair care as 1 word was very significant. They, on their website, were using hair care as a single word. So if you're with me, by us going to Google Trends and identifying that hair care as 2 words was
You split it up.
being searched much more commonly, we could go to their website, revamp it all with hair care as 2 words, and then Google is able to index the site a little bit easier for their ideal target audience. So number 2 tip is to actually use this free tool of Google Trends, and it's so fun. Again, usually this is like the big highlight when I show it to my clients the first time. They're just like, holy crap.
And it's free. And it's amazing that it's great that it's free. Yeah.
It's like right there. And so I think it's great. And then my third tip is, and this is the scary one, I really suggest that clients map out some sense of a media plan, that they're not just like white knuckling it, throwing stuff at the wall, hoping that things, you know, stick, like planning by the seat of their pants. I really do think that making a media plan, and ideally it's an annual plan, but at least a quarterly, where they're able to step back and see what seasonal trends, holidays, target, you know, milestones, objectives, when they want to do sales events, everything and anything can really map out on this media plan. And what I have found is that the companies that are willing to actually do that, again, it's organizing your shit. You have to actually like think it through, and you have to think like product launches. When is a new product launching? And that helps us. When are we going to start promoting that product? And what's the follow through? And it just makes everything so much easier. And so again, if you don't have to guess at this. If you use a tool like Metorik or anything else that is informational, you take that data and it instructs you and it says,
Mm-hmm.
let's look at what happened last year.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, we're looking at our data and it says that there was a huge spike in sales for some reason of this particular product in February. Let's be ready for that. I mean, it's March now, so too late.
Yeah. We missed the boat this year. Yeah.
We missed it.
Yeah.
But, thinking about, or last year, so we had a Black Friday, big sale. What were our high selling products? Let's make sure that we get them into production early, and so that we're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe we
Mm-hmm.
do like a fun little Christmas package, like a trio pre-sale, something ready to capitalize on that. And it's all based on data informing creativity.
Amazing. And I guess another thing they can do is maybe work with you. Are you looking for new are you looking for new clients at the moment, or are you like kind of like it's just you? So are you at like capacity now, or?
I am a little bit at capacity, but you know what? I'm actually really looking for, I would like to build GPS, and that's a little bit of a unique thing. That's me adapting.
Mm-hmm.
In the future. I could see that's going to be my more sustainable. Like, I've got the big projects and that's awesome, and I will absolutely adore doing them. But as I look
For your
down
business.
the pike of the next 10 years, I think that being able to take a step back and just be GPS for people is going to be more and more exciting to me. So yeah, obviously, I mean, I love talking to people. So if anyone wants to go check out Greta Rose and just gretarose.com and send me an email, I of course will respond. And it's me.
Amazing.
I'm not going to delegate it to anyone else.
To someone, it's Greta. So I mean, it's been an amazing chat. I've had a really great time, and I think we've covered some very interesting points. I hope people got some value out of it. And yeah, thank you so much. Maybe we can do it again in the future. I mean, we did have an idea of potentially, doing some sort of maybe panel with some customers as well, and maybe chatting. Maybe we'll explore that down the line if people enjoyed this video, this webinar. But yeah,
I think that would be really fun. I could see having a nice panel of experts and also customers, and just really talking about data and how to interpret it. And, so you're looking at the data. What does that mean? What do you do with the data?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Greta. And yeah,
it's getting all dark here.
Yeah. Well, it's
I'm
getting
gonna
all
have my.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in. Amazing. Bye.
Bye.